This is Freeze, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube, and I would have been better than forgiven if I wouldn't get injured.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Thorin's Rotations, and for this one, we're going to look at the LEC playoffs. And this is, if people don't know, this is actually the kind of show that's quite tricky to put on because it's really hard to get players who are playing because they're obviously in the actual playoffs and they usually have to like hunker down and practice and not have any distractions. But unless you just want the people on Twitter who know everything about the draft and what everyone should have done to come on the shows, if you actually want people involved in the scene, the awkward thing is the people who know the LEC the best are the coaches and players in the LEC. So you have to ask someone who, this is the ultimate heresy, who just got knocked out. They didn't get in the playoffs. So for this episode, everyone, right, even though we're probably going to awkwardly at some point mention it, it'll probably be funny or something, you know, we're going to have to gingerly pretend that, like, even though Amazing is a coach for Misfits, and that's fine, you know, let's not talk about Misfits. Let's talk about these teams in the playoffs. Same for Duque, Vitality. Past years of Vitality were cool, but like we're not talking about this splits Vitality necessarily because it'd be too awkward, wouldn't it? We wouldn't want to do that. And then Araneae here, luckily he's not in the LEC at the moment, so things are going great for him. How are you doing, Araneae? Things are going awesome, right?
Yep. At least I'm on MAD Lions, a one day on playoffs, so I'm lucky being here.
There we go. Actually, let's start with you then, Araneae. So obviously people want to see you for a while. You haven't been on many shows and that sort of thing. How closely do you follow LEC nowadays, and what do you think of LEC as a league from when back in the day you were involved with a lot of teams when it was EULCS?
I mean, I guess it's a normal word or phrase to say that LEC or LCS in the past was way funnier, especially when you could travel from country to country. I remember Season 3 going to Lille, pretty winter country there, or winter city in France. Going also to Canarias, going to Russia, going to Sweden. It was hella fun of days. Aside of that, I've been involved with MAD Lions since the creation of the team. I created the team, being the coach with World League, Selmit and Falco from the start, and we had a quite success team with the Nemesis and Selmit roster. And after that, they literally LEC came with the money and told me, guys, you're gone. And they literally just robbed me, every single player. So I had to try to create a new team, which the first time was quite successful. We once again went to European Master and did quite well. But then we kind of went wrong. But still, right now we have a MAD Lions and LEC, which it was the main objective from the team, so we're quite happy. And I'm obviously following a lot LEC. I'm talking with Peter and Mac weekly to see updates from LEC to SLO, and we work a lot together.
There's obviously some sort of magnet, mate, that just pulls you to Fnatic. Like all the players that you're friends with or coach always have to be in Fnatic. You should just be in Fnatic at this point in time and just save everyone some time.
I mean, I'm not gonna say I had discussions with LEC teams. I'm not even going to say Fnatic, but I'm quite happy being in Spain. I have my own family here, so I'm happy being here.
Fair enough. Right. Amazing. Is there any sort of general statement you wanted to make about Misfits before we get into the playoffs? Like, you know, could be an excuse, could be a comment. It's up to you, mate.
I'm just so sad. You know, I mean, in retrospect, we had two games. I mean, I guess the Fnatic games that were like really standing out. We're 7K up in both games, and we both lost both of them. If we won those, would have not only been in playoffs, but Fnatic would have been last, that last. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a pretty close split, but I'm just really sad about the fact that we're out of playoffs because it feels like you're being grounded like a little child. You're not allowed to work anymore, or you're not allowed to be like part of it anymore. You're just like sitting at home. In your own four walls, so there's that. But you know, positives out of everything, I suppose. So I get to watch and learn.
Okay, one thing a way we can start talking about these playoffs is obviously the team that everyone at least expected to be in the playoffs was Schalke because they started obviously like lost all the games initially and then had to go on this miracle run. And in doing so, obviously, those are some of the losses towards the end of the split that did both of your teams in Vitality and Misfits. So one thing I want to ask you two, actually, as we get into talking about them, obviously they're in the lower bracket of the playoffs here, is like, Duke, did you guys, and same for you, Amazing, did you actually practice against Schalke much? Like, could you basically see it in any of the practices if you did, that they were starting to suddenly magically become good out of nowhere?
Actually, yes, totally. I remember actually when they were 1-8, there was 2 weeks where the 15 minutes, we are not that great in scrims, especially at this time, but the 15 minutes every game with insane level 1 strategies, a really good early game, and so we were basically making fun of Schalke that were playing like Damwon in scrims. And it was really literally like I remember it was the same feeling than when I was at Worlds last year and we were getting stormed by Damwon on every game, getting dived 3 times in 8 minutes. Well, it was the same against Schalke at the time, but we were not understanding why they were so bad on stage, and at some point it clicked. But actually from scrims, I think I could see that coming. I wouldn't have bet my money on it, obviously, because it's still an insane run.
Yeah,
but I think they were practicing at least very well.
Yeah.
What do you think, Amazing?
No, it's the same for us. I mean, in the beginning of the split, every time we scrimmed them, it was like a 4-1, 5-0 even. I mean, we're also overperforming in scrim some of the time, but like later on in the split, they became better and better. At some point, it was actually magnificent to what they pulled off, and that's also on stage where I feel like just in general from watching them, they just really understood who they are. I think so many other non-playoff teams, they just try to like kind of like tweak it a bit, they weren't quite sure of the identity, but Schalke was just like, okay, this is what we have, and we're gonna run with it. And every single game, like at some point, it actually became something they could pull off. Especially relying on Abadaga more and more in the later parts of the split, like it's something that I didn't see coming in the beginning. But yeah, scrims was kind of a forte, I suppose.
Yeah, one thing I've actually found quite impressive about this run, because obviously everyone's getting hyped for the storyline, but the thing I've found quite impressive is you would think if a team that was terrible suddenly got a bunch of wins in best of ones, because that's what people are going to say, it was just best of one online. You'd think they were doing all cheese all the time, but actually this team plays like pretty good standard. Like I think that the coaching staff seems to do a good job. Like you're saying, Duke, they know the identity of the team basically and how they're going to play the game. So it's not like they're doing crazy moves to do this. They're actually just playing good League of Legends, it looks like.
I think they are playing pretty well as a team. I think the macro is kind of subpar compared to the good teams in Europe at the moment, but I think they have really good, as Amazing said, identity, especially around the draft. I think they have really solid draft all around. Really good early game planning, level 1s in general. And I think the team really works well together in fighting scenarios, which in a sense, even if it's hard to learn it and to teach it in a sense, I think they are really just good together when it comes to intense moments, and this just comes down to players' chemistry and instinct. And yeah, I just think they just found themselves. Indeed, massive props to Dylan. I think turning around a 1-8 team where the atmosphere must be really hard and really bad in the team when you are in this situation to a playoff team is insane performance. So.
Sure. Araneae, what do you think of Schalke?
I mean, I saw them doing like really better drafts than before. I saw them picking champions that none other team in LEC was playing. I believe they weren't the only team playing Sen, or a lot of spamming Sen in top lane, which I believe they have a 100% win ratio with Sen. Even Oro Abne said on an interview that they didn't expect to get Sen versus MAD Lions, I believe it was, because they had insane win ratio with it. There was one of the few teams we were playing a lot of Sejuani, and to be honest, Gilly Sejuani is pretty good. So they were picking wins on drafts that it was fairly good for them. It's not like I could see the drafts and say like, no, Schalke is lost draft, they're gonna lose the game. No, their draft was making sense. Even at the start of the split, some drafts were like not that good, but at the end they were good. And you could see as I believe amazingly said, Aberage look completely different from the start of the split to the end. Also Gilius give him that kind of confidence. So I think they played well, but also the drafts is really good for them.
Yeah, amazing. As a jungler, what would you say about Gilius's performance? Like, what I want to know basically is just give me like the real take. Like, I know for the broadcast, it's obviously a fun storyline that he returned after everyone flamed him and everyone thought he was done. Yep. And obviously he was, even on Schalke, he was supposed to be done. He'd been replaced, etc. As actual jungle player, how good do you think he's been?
I mean, I can't quite put a number on it, but I would say what he brings and what he does is quite different to a lot of junglers. First of all, like, I feel like he's one of the only junglers that actually takes agency, I would suppose, where he's like actually doing stuff and he wants to do stuff. And he doesn't let his lateness dictate. So everything that happens in Schalke in the early game is actually revolving around him. There's nothing that happens without him. So that's something a lot of junglers like. I mean, they kind of like let laners do first, but in Schalke it's completely different. So that's a lot of responsibility. So in that regard, I think he's doing a great job. And I think in terms of like mechanical ability, like he's always been fine. He's never been bad. So I don't see anything bad there. Like I would say he can actually like be like maybe top 3 to top 5. I think right now that's a cautious number I would suppose, but he could easily be top 3 right now. Yeah.
Sure. Right, obviously in the playoffs, even though they made it, it's the format now where we have sort of double elim if you're the top 4 teams, so they're all in the upper bracket, but Schalke starts in the lower bracket in this match against SK, right? What do you actually think of SK over the split Duke? Like, with that, I noticed a lot of people, when it was coming into the run to the playoffs, a lot of people, for example, still had faith like Fnatic would make it somehow, like some of the other teams maybe were more debatable. I know some people even thought OG until like they kind of went wrong with Jack Troll, but most people, for some reason, had SK picked as the team that they thought was kind of like not legit among the top teams in terms of placing, because obviously they were like fairly high up at times. What did you actually think of SK?
SK surprised me a lot. I think I was not expecting them to be that consistent. I think they are a solid team. Nothing special, nothing great. I think they are, in a sense, a lesser version of Rogue. Really in a predictable play style, predictable but good drafts. Just, I would say, less stable early game, but they are playing a lot through their bot lane. Crownshot is having a really good split, doing well with limits. I think Jenax going to top lane has been a great decision by him. I think he's doing great on top lane, playing more of a weak side style, but I think he could also be playing strong side. Zazie is stable. I just think they're a stable team, but I'm not too sure about the matchup against Schalke. I think that's a bad matchup for them.
Yeah.
No, what do you think, Amazing?
I mean, when I look at the players, I just don't know where any of the firepower comes from. I just don't know. There's nothing that is like
Crownshot.
Yeah, he's the only one. He's the only one, and then the rest of the team is like, I guess we're playing the game. And they're somehow winning. And if I compare them even to Vitality, like I don't know how they ended up higher than Vitality. I don't know how they ended up higher than us. But I guess they were just mentally more stable over the course of the split, or were able to like pull off like more consistent performances over the split.
I mean, what I think about SK, first of all, is with Caitlyn being back on the meta, which is a champion that favors Crownie a lot, and having a super like Limit who can play really good Bard, who can play Yumi, who can play Thresh, who can play like this kind of supports. I think that doesn't look that bad versus Schalke. Also, it's true that it was the all Schalke. But SK has a winning record into Schalke. The split is 2-0, sorry. It was the last team who beat Schalke before the winning record of Schalke. So I will not give the fully advantage to Schalke, because I think if they rely fully on bot lane, and Sase is going to be able to stop Aberage, because Sase is not a high carry, but he's also not going to lose versus almost anyone. So if Crownie can take the advantage of the bot lane, I don't think it's that bad for SK.
Yeah, actually, if people don't know, like every game pretty much that they won in LEC, they would get like the MVP would be given to Crownshot every single time. But the problem is, since as you're saying, it's not as though everyone thought the rest of the team had really good players. What I want to ask is, how good do you actually think Crownshot is as an AD carry? Like, does that mean, for example, if they'd have been like a few games high, should he have been like an MVP candidate? Was he that much better, or is he just better than not very good teammates? Which end do you come down on?
I mean, I think if you consider MVP from all the teams, it's hard to give it to Crownie, but it's true that the best player on that team is Crownie, right?
Sure.
So I'm not going to say Crownie should be the MVP ever, but I think he's a candidate, because it's the team that you look from the playoffs and you can see there is a clearly MVP on that team, right? Because other teams, like probably you can say from G2, Caps, this split has been playing pretty good compared with the rest, but a team like MAD Lions or even Rogue, I think the whole team is playing so good that it's hard to just nominate one MVP.
Fair enough. Do you guys have any thoughts as to who your MVP is?
The problem with Crownie getting voted for MVP is that I think he's a really, really good AD carry and top AD carry in Europe, at least on this split. But the problem is that he would stand out as the best AD carry, a great AD carry carrying his team. But I think on that role, I think just Patrick then just takes it in front of him. Like Patrick has just been better on the weaker team, and I would just give it to Patrick. I think I actually gave it to Patrick as ADC.
Fair enough.
No, I
what do
mean,
you think I'm missing?
No, I can see that. I don't think Crownie is above average. I don't think he's even. I wouldn't even consider him top 3. I think they're like, I mean, at least Reckless is better. I think Patrick is better. Then there can be made an argument for the head-to-head, like in other scenarios with like even Perks who can still have higher highs, like so. I don't know. Like I think he's above average. I think he's just standing out partially because his team is just like relying on him and playing through him all the time. So I think I wouldn't consider him an AD carry even. like MVP on the AD carry position, even if I had to pick an AD carry MVP. You know, I think that would be Patrick for me.
Okay. So if Schalke actually wins this first matchup, the problem they have is they basically have to do another miracle one, but now it's winning best of fives because they have to win something crazy. Like I think they have to win like 3 in a row or something.
No,
Well,
2, I think.
2?
Yeah, I think
Oh, because 4 teams. Well, let me see. 1, 2.
they should win
Yes,
the
you're right.
first game,
Yeah.
and the loser of the lowest seed loser of the 2 first game of the upper bracket.
Yes. Okay. So for this one, right, listen, we can't run through every single permutation, but like, do you actually think Schalke has a chance to get one of the world spots? I mean, obviously they're going to have to play someone out of Rogue, Fnatic, G2 or Mad Lions, so none of those really sound great to get. Maybe Fnatic. And thoughts if they get Fnatic, anyone?
Look at Araneae's face. I think he's saying something.
I mean, they have to beat, first of all, SK, which is possible, but then they have to beat D2 or Mad Lions on a best of 5, right?
No, they can be beating Fnatic.
So if Fnatic lose versus Rogue, and Fnatic goes bot?
Any of the 4 teams that can basically,
Okay.
besides the first place team, they have to face.
And it's actually really likely to be Fnatic because unless Fnatic losing instantly qualifies G2 and Mad Lions for Worlds,
Right.
and because they are lowest seed, and then they will play against against the winner of Schalke SK. And personally, I think that Schalke should be winning against SK. And Fnatic, it all depends of which version of Fnatic we are seeing. I think they have been playing really badly this split, but it's still Fnatic, right? Fnatic, basically, it's not like those players don't know how to play the game. They can remember how they should be playing the game, and in such a high pressure environment, they usually shine. And I expect them to rise their level a lot during playoffs. But if they don't, they might lose to Schalke.
I mean, I think it's highly unlikely that they do. Like, it's more about like if I look at Schalke and I would have to beat them in a best of 5. There's like a stringent of certain champions I would just ban out or like basically play around and think about. Like especially like something like the Sejuani, I think is really really important. And then just like overall the mid champion pool, you know, like it's the same thing. So I mean if I was playing at Schalke, I would not be worried in the best of 5. I'm more worried in the best of 1, especially if my team is like underprepared macro-wise. If you're worse macro-wise against Schalke, you're just gonna lose. Like because the players are actually really consistent in the way they play. So, and I just don't see any of the top 4 teams being that inconsistent in the macro scale that they can lose to Schalke in the best of 5 because of it.
I would say exactly what you said. Like it depends on Fnatic. For me, it's highly doubted that we will see a better Fnatic version, to be honest, because this split, I just didn't see a team. I didn't see a Fnatic.
Yeah.
There was missing completely a team. You could see how Cellmate, Wipo, Hilisan, even Nemesis were a completely different pace from the rest. It was really sad and it was really depressing to watch that team because a team, as Duke said, they have like probably top players on every single role, but then they just didn't match together. I'm not gonna say it's Mithy fault. I'm not gonna say it's coaching staff fault. I have no idea what is the problem, but there is a clear problem there, which they didn't look as a team at all. They all split.
How did Nemesis and Selfmade mesh when you coached them? Because like when I see them play right now, like they just didn't do anything together. And when I saw them on Mad Lions, they actually did stuff together. They actually like I don't know, the synergy was actually pretty good. How's the difference now?
So at some time I had to sacrifice myself and have to go to Cellmate or Nemesis and tell Nemesis, I'm the bad guy here. Cellmate is the good guy. So they will match together better. But it was like two I'm not gonna say ego guys, but 2 kids that really believe they are super good, which they are at some points. But sometimes there is some friction between them, and I have to be there, just getting all the shit to myself for them to get along together. I remember even one day that Cellmate literally wanted to leave the team, and he was him and me. We had a big confrontation. And I had to go to Nemesis and just tell him like just go with Cellmate, you know, like you have to go with him and be next to him. And I was always looking the bad guy, but I guess that was my wolf there because they were insanely talented. So they are talented, but I don't know right now what's going on at Fnatic because there is so many personalities that it's hard to say if Neme and Cellmate got along together in Mad Lions, how they're gonna get along together in Fnatic, having Wipo, having Reckless, having Hilisan. I have no idea.
So you guys are over here just nerding out trying to find shit in League of Legends like rotations and stuff. Araneae's over here playing mind games with his own players. I appreciate it. I like that.
Oh, that's the way to go. You have to do it.
That's pretty next level.
No. Sorry. This is a fast thing. As a fast thing.
Yeah.
When I went to Worlds with Origin, I remember this is one of the funniest stories I ever tell. I'm gonna tell my kids this story because it was really funny. What was your coach? Amazing.
Oh, yeah, Hermit.
Yeah.
Okay, Hermit. So there was a big confrontation, like huge confrontation between Amazing and Mithy. And for 50 minutes, Amazing will say, this is white. For 30 minutes, Mithy will say, this is black. And they will be talking for this for 30 minutes, okay? And I have to come there. I went to the blackboard and I say, okay, Amazing, give me your points. I write on the blackboard, blah, 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 blah. Mithy, give me your points, blah, 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 blah. Soas, Peke, what do you think about this? I think like this and this. Niels, what do you think about this? I think that it is. And then I don't know if it was Amazing or Mithy, they say, oh, yeah, you're right. Let's do it Mithy's way or Amazing way. And then they work together. So literally, being a coach sometimes is just better than macro or anything, is trying to put together 5 players and make them work. Because so many times players know the macro, so many times players know way better the game than you. So you just have to make them work together. And sometimes making them work together is harder than teaching the macro or anything like this.
As I'm sure Mithy's found out this split, because that does seem to be the story of Fnatic in many ways.
Is Mithy even the coach, though?
Unless the coach.
That meme is still alive, I see. Okay.
No, I'm actually wondering, like, I'm not trying to criticize LS or anything like that, like in this case, because I actually do think that, like, at least like for certain players, he definitely has a positive impact. But I just wonder if, like, them having like multiple influences actually has dictated like certain things, or if the influence was actually big enough, to make a change happen. Because last split they looked so united, and this split they looked like dog shit, honestly.
I mean, Duke said it like 20 minutes ago when I asked him about the LFL team. When you influence a team so much that the team is losing identity, you should realize yourself and you should just step back. And that's not what else I believe is doing, or I'm not sure. I'm actually talking shit because I have no idea what's going on.
I have no idea.
But what you said, Amazing, is completely right. Like last split, they look like a team. This split, they didn't look like a team. And there's still this meme about LS coaching them and stuff like this. So I don't know if it's influencing people like Nemesis, because I know Nemesis is a guy who is easy to influence. So I don't know if he's doing something there, but it's looking bad. Yeah.
One thing I think actually is a factor, because it's very rare, obviously, that Fnatic as a team is losing. I mean, I know this core did it like when it was at the beginning of Season 9, but usually they're nearly always a top team. I have to say, especially when they've been bad, Fnatic fans really are like the TSM fans of Europe, dude, because there's also the same sort of like extreme scrutiny. So if you're a Fnatic player losing, just like if you're a TSM player losing, you're going to get flamed by your own fans, never mind the other fans. Like, your own fans are going to be saying like Bwipo and Broken Blade, and both teams have just been getting told the whole split, like, you shouldn't be in the team, cut this guy, he's terrible. So the pressure if you start losing must be way bigger than some of the other teams out there.
Yeah, I mean, I was on Fnatic for a bit. So
and you were in TSM for a bit?
Yeah, I guess I was in both. I mean, I don't think that Fnatic fans have that much of an influence, actually, similar to the TSM fans. I don't know what it is about like European fans, but they may trash talk in like certain scenarios. They're like, oh, you're bad, whatever it is, and they open up their Reddit threads. But they don't become that personal. It's not like you have someone in your DMs or you have someone at like a fan meet telling you your shit. So that happens in an A. But at least like to my experience,
I'm following Fnatic for all my career, and I will tell you, this split is what Thorin is saying. This split, Fnatic fans compared to the TSM fans completely.
Yeah,
they literally are sitting talking the players 24/7. It's actually so annoying to read it, by the way.
So is it time for me to say that Rogue is gonna beat Fnatic 8 times out of 10 times?
Now's your chance to pounce.
Yes. Now I have the Fnatic fans on me this year.
But
I will tell you if they are that bad.
I mean, that Rogue Fnatic matchup is actually really, really interesting, no? Like, it's actually...
Yeah.
I mean, Rogue is the best... Like, it feels like they're the best team, but I still don't know... I mean...
You can't believe in them to win yet.
Yeah, they're on paper the best team, but I just don't believe it, Like, when I say it.
I think Rogue are very, very much predictable. I think they are really strong at doing always the same thing.
Yeah.
And what I dislike about Rogue, and that people could have disliked, for example, about Splice last year, and also that the reason I think that Europe is pretty weak at the moment is that I think that this split has been defined by the top teams like Rogue and MAD, trying to play a really slow and late game meta. And then it becomes kind of a cold war, right? When you are a lower tier team and you play against those teams and you lose because you get outscaled in 50 minutes while not winning the early game, then the next game you are going to try to play late game even more. So at least you don't auto lose the game if the early game doesn't go perfectly.
Right. Yeah.
And on teams like G2 and Fnatic tried to do the opposite at the beginning of the split. Fnatic didn't work out, G2 not that well, and so everyone started to play late, and Rogue refined their style, but I don't think this style is really strong. I think it's strong until the point that you face players that are at least on your skill level individually. And I think Rogue's draft might exhaust at some point, especially now that the meta is shifting a bit more towards top lane, which I think benefited a lot Schalke, for example, and should benefit G2 and also are benefiting Fnatic. I think Fnatic actually have most of their success playing strong side on top lane. I think Bwipo has a lot of pick that it could abuse Finn with, and I think Finn might be the weakest link in Rogue, even if he's a good player. So I think Rogue looks stronger than Fnatic, but I think Fnatic can really punish Rogue in terms of like if Bwipo finds the way against Finn. But I'm really scared about the draft for Fnatic, especially regarding bot lane picks like Kalista.
Kalista, Caitlyn.
So Kalista, Caitlyn, they don't really play it.
Yeah.
They don't play that much Ezreal, which has been permabanned by Rogue on both sides. So that's a free ban for Rogue. That they don't have. Rakan is being buffed, but Rakan might need so much buff bans that it might be hard. Tristana is being buffed, but I think that's the same. I think Senna will be super key for Fnatic, but Rogue also play it. I think red side should be pretty hard for Fnatic bot lane, but I'm not too sure. But I would still give the edge to Rogue, but I think Fnatic have a card to play on Bwipo's lane.
What do you think, Amazing? I mean, obviously another matchup that we didn't address very much there is like the mid lane matchup very much goes on the Rogue side, obviously. So how do you see it, this particular series, Amazing?
I mean, it's just tough to call. I think I'm with Duke. I think top lane is probably the biggest difference. I think mid lane, even though Nemesis has been criticized a lot, I do think that his matchup against Larson is actually not that terrible, because Larson, while he actually plays he basically plays scaling, and Nemesis plays scaling, so it's a trade-off. You may get a 10 CS lead there, you may get one more play out of Larson into Nemesis, but it's not going to be like where Larson's going to be able to just trash him or whatever. So I would say that bot lane aggression, top lane aggression, I think those two play a part, and whether or not Selfmade is going to carry the shit out of Fnatic. I think that's probably the bigger thing, because if he understands his matchup correctly, if he understands his Inspired has been looking shaky. He's not been looking like the strongest. He's been looking like, especially when it comes to clutch situations, he's actually made wrong calls or wrong smites, whatever it is, in a lot of the time. So I think if Selfmade can really get into his head, and by that I mean just picking proper counter champions, especially on red side, I think you can do that. Even move jungle to 4-5, I would say, we should enable him to get a proper matchup. And if he can dominate that early, I think Fnatic have a good shot actually.
Yeah, what do you think, Araneae? Oh, sorry, go on, Duke. Yeah, go on.
No, I think I'm indeed really interested in this matchup, especially with the Evelynn buffed. I think both of them are the the biggest Evelynn players, and I'm wondering if they actually try to pull it off, because I think both of them are actually farm heavy, especially Selfmade, who is farming a lot, and maybe it could be a clutch matchup in the best of 5 where both mid laners just want to farm. Maybe they will just blind pick Corki actually at some point. So I mean, they do it. Rogue just blind pick Corki, and Fnatic might as well do. I think unless TF is being picked again, which I think is actually really strong at the moment and underlooked, it might be a farm fest on mid jungle, and maybe picks like Evelynn could make the difference. I'm curious actually if it's good.
Araneae, what do you think?
Lately, Inspire didn't look that heavy farm. I believe even versus MAD, he literally just ganked every single lane early game 24/7. So he was really looking to... No, Inspired.
Yeah, Inspired. Yeah, I agree. Inspired in the early game does a lot.
Yeah, it's not like Selfmade. I fully agree with you. Selfmade is just more looking to farm with his Graves. I believe he's the only one in Europe playing Graves.
He's the only one playing Kha'Zix too, kind of.
Kha'Zix is a lot of people playing it. Gilius played Kha'Zix.
Gilius plays the game.
Yeah, but they play it, but they You know, they
Yeah,
play.
but it's as you said, like, is this a farming jungle? Which this should not be the case for Rogue. I think if Rogue you try to abuse, especially early and mid, early matchups on top and mid, is a winning key for you. But I don't think Selma is going to do that. So you guys are saying that Fnatic has a good matchup. I don't really see it with the amount of problems they have. If they don't fix these problems for the early game, I think Rogue will just outscale every single game of Fnatic and just win by default.
I agree. I think they should win, but I think Fnatic have the tools to contest them. I think the top lane picks, for example, it seems that Finn has been relevant on tanks, Renekton, and GP. GP should be highly contested, but with GP being banned, I think Bwipo could look for really, really good counter picks to Finn. And if they play, like Bwipo, I think is the top laner with the highest jungle proximity actually in the league. And if Selfmade plays around Bwipo and the bot lane is able to play weak side somehow, I can see Fnatic.
Fnatic bot lane weak side. Oof. It's going to be interesting.
I mean, they can't play strong side at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you also said, Duke, that we come into a more favorable top side meta, right?
A bit, yeah.
But in regions like China, Caitlyn is literally first pick on every game.
Right? Of course, but I expect, like, the thing is, of course, if you have Caitlyn...
Caitlyn's not going to be in the game, I think, in between Rogue and Fnatic.
If Caitlyn, Kalista out, yeah, but I assume Caitlyn and Kalista being out in this matchup anyway.
Same.
So my question is, if Caitlyn is out, Rogue can pick Kalista. How do you counter Kalista from Reckless?
I think both will be out, but I think
Because,
I mean, Ashe is a good matchup for sure.
Yeah,
my
but I
thought
don't think he
process-
plays Ashe.
Yeah,
No.
Senna can be okay too in some matchups. Like, it just depends on
Into-
how your
into
first six levels go. Yeah, if your
It's rough, but
first six
Sam.
levels don't go terrible, then at some point you win.
For me, having Reckless champion pool, you can kind of always pick Jhin into Caitlyn, and he likes him.
Yeah.
He always historically liked Jhin. So I don't see a point where you will ban Caitlyn when you think that Jhin is good into Caitlyn. I think Jhin kind of stabilizes Caitlyn. The problem is if they play for Caitlyn, you're still gonna get dumped. Like,
The only
there's
issue
nothing you can do.
The only issue with Jhin is that, like, when AD carries are usually match, especially when it comes to the Caitlyn like versus anything matchup, like, you usually match 1-2, right, on red side especially. If you pick Jhin 1-2, enemy runs like any kind of like frontline, like heavy comp, that champion just looks like trash. So, like, when you have to match it, Jhin is such a risky pick, so you actually have to move it already. So you have to sacrifice other picks. And I don't know, maybe Selfmade is just going to blind pick the Kazakhs, they're going to flex pick the set, something like that. I'm not quite sure what they're going to do. But it's really hard to pick Jhin if you're red side matching a Caitlyn. It feels to me at least. Like, whenever I saw this in my draft too, I was like, well, no, I don't want to do this.
I think you want to pick a Jhin against Caitlyn the same way you pick an Ashe, which I think is with a draft that is very engaged oriented and with, like, you don't want to play slow. You don't want to reach the point where that tank will be unkillable with Jhin. I think you want to be able to flash on Caitlyn level 1 with the Nautilus or Set or whatever and try to play super fast. I think that's why a team like G2 for me can play those kind of play style, but I don't think that I don't think you can match a Caitlyn by a Jhin. I think you can fight a Caitlyn with a Jhin, but I don't think if you want to scale to 25-30 minutes, I think you lose the game.
I think you should just like what my rule of thumb at least was, like, later on in the season, is that, like, when I see Caitlyn, for example, like, I know that this champ is probably gonna outscale my AD carry, like, in most cases. Then, like, especially when I match it with Jhin, like, it's gonna outscale. So you just match it on 5 with, like, match enemy top laner on 5 with a carry top laner in some kind of way, like, whether that's the Aatrox, whether that's the Camille, just accelerate the game in order to at least, like, get it done by 25-30 minutes. Because you go beyond that, like, it looks really, really rough. So that was kind of like what I was thinking. And I think Fnatic can do that. I still don't feel like I don't know. Maybe it's just champion specific. But whenever I see Jhin into Caitlyn, I just feel like I'm on so much overtimer that I feel uncomfortable.
To be fair, I think because it's the best of 5. For example, when we played against Schalke on Saturday, we wanted to play Ashe into Caitlyn, but we were not too sure of the matchup, and it was successful for us in scrims. But we know that if it doesn't go well as planned, then you can't win the game because Caitlyn will be just too strong. And we actually did it against you on Sunday. Didn't go too well either. But because of the best of 1, we didn't want to do it because if it fails, you don't have a second shot. But in the best of 5, I think they will try to leave Caitlyn open at the beginning, and then let's see how it goes. But if they have to ban Caitlyn because of the first games, and then they are cornered in a red side situation or even a blue side, because it's not like they play it themselves,
No,
when they have to play Kalista Caitlyn, the draft is looking really, really rough. And also it means that they are not abusing blue side, which blue side at the moment you want to maybe abuse the bot lane picks. So if they are blue side, they are not going to abuse the bot lane picks while getting counter picked on top.
Yeah, that looks rough. Yeah, if they kind of first pick Caitlyn, or like I would even say Bard, it's fine. You can also first pick Bard right now, like kind of like get something going there. But I just don't see either scenario like working out for Fnatic that way right now.
I agree, and I think what Duke said is exactly the point where blue side of Fnatic is not going to be good, so they probably have to choose red side to have a counter pick in top lane or a counter pick support, so they can try to play the game. If they choose blue side and they don't abuse the bot lane picks, I don't think how they're gonna ever pick blue side again.
I think red side is hard losing though at the moment. I agree.
Yeah.
On dispatch, I just asked my analyst.
Yeah, if you don't play Caitlyn.
Yeah, go for it.
No, if you don't play Caitlyn, if you don't play Kalista, blue side is also not that good for you, to be honest. Because you have to ban all the champions, and then you have to rely on a bot lane which is something like Senna, which even Edfield is going to Senna, so I don't know what you're going to do from blue side, from a Fnatic draft point.
At the moment, we are at 56% win rate on blue side on the last two patches on top region, which is huge. I think
actually pretty incredible. Yeah.
And when I was preparing red side, it felt really, really bad. So I don't know. Unless Bwipo has insane counter picks, red side should also be hard. But let's be optimistic for Fnatic still.
60-40 for Rogue. That's what I call it. 60-40.
I put it 65-35, I think, for Rogue.
Okay. You have Rogue winning this one, Araneae?
I put Rogue. I think it's going to be 70-30 for Rogue.
I notice in general, actually, even though Rogue have obviously finished first in the split and will actually be going to Worlds no matter what, almost nobody seems to actually have the faith, kind of like what you were saying, they're amazing, that they're going to actually win the LEC. But this is the weird, like, one angle I will give them. Because to be fair, obviously, they're not really, like, veterans, and most of their players have never ever been anywhere close to even a final, etc., except for Vander, basically. So the thing I will say that's different, I think, about this team compared to past teams that have maybe had, like, a good run in the best of ones, is what they do is just so consistent, though. Like, it's not like they've had a bunch of crazy all over the place wins or this guy just had one pop off game. Like the way they play and the way they win has been so consistent and people just have not been able to stop them. So even though usually I don't think this, like this is a case where like they could just do that for 3 games in the best of 5 and then they win the series. That's it. They will be going further. Does anyone actually think they have a chance to win LEC?
Yeah,
I think they have. I think they obviously have a chance. But what we're trying to say, or a lot of people are trying to say about Rogue is, when they're going to go to Worlds and they're going to have to match up like LPL teams or LCK teams, you have to readapt your playstyle 24/7. I can see a team like MAD Lions readapting their style. I can see a team like G2 readapting their style. I don't see a team like Rogue readapting their style. They're just going to try to keep their style, which...
It's going to be hard for them to play early game.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be really hard, especially LPL teams.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think their playstyle lacks a bit of ambition. I think they have some interesting strat from time to time. We saw how they are always diving when they have GP. For example, you can watch every single one of their games.
Yeah, they do.
They dive level 3-4 on GP top side. Larsen played well. Like they also very often level 2 gank on mid lane when they have, I think, Trundle set. They also did the level 1 swap with Sion that we did last year with Splice. That worked. That should have worked really well against G2, but they fumbled super hard bot while it was already won for Rogue. I think we might see again some level 1 swap. I think it might catch Fnatic off guard because even if you're expecting it, it's not that easy to deal with. So Sion blind pick, for example, on blue side for Rogue could indicate a level 1 swap. So I think they have interesting strat, but as we said, they lack ambition in the early game. They always want to have this safety net that if the early game is not going so well, they are scaling really well into the mid-game team fights. And they always pick those champions that are a bit in between in terms of personalities. For example, Azir, for me, is the defining pick of this kind of meta, where when you pick Azir, you don't choose anything. You are not committing to necessarily full late game. You are not committing to early game. He pushes, it's fine, but he doesn't do much. He doesn't really get ganked. He can disengage. He can side to some extent. He has range. He does a bit of everything, but not anything great. But also it neutralizes his opponent because you can't really push that hard on Azir. The counter picks to Azir are also scaling usually. and I think it just makes the game stale. But that's why for me against Rogue, you just ban Azir to force them to at least choose. Do they want to?
which path they're going to go down? Yeah,
exactly. And so far, for me, they like to not choose. And I would like Rogue to try to, because I think they can. I think they can. I think they have really good players. I think they are pretty smart. And I think they could try to play a bit more with a bit more ambition in terms of draft. And it's not like their draft are bad. It's just that they're always the same.
Yeah.
Sure.
Certainly.
Since earlier we were talking about crown, short, caps, etc. Larson is obviously an MVP candidate this split. Like, any thoughts on him?
On who, sorry?
Larson?
I think he's the best laning mid laner. Not that he's super oppressive, but I think he
doesn't commit mistakes.
He's just clean. He's clean.
He's very clean. Yeah. But again, he will always he's a bit like Nemesis. He always opt for the scaling option if he can, and which I think is respectable. But I don't think you can become a very top player, and he's a top player, but an elite player like Caps, Rookie, etc., who take over the game by themselves in a few minutes by playing this style. And I think Larsen could. Maybe he just needs confidence, experience, and maybe at some point he will. But I'm expecting a bit more from those players because they are great players and they're a great team.
Yeah, I think if he gets a bit more confidence and experience, I think especially against top tier mid laners, maybe he can evolve. I guess the main difference between him and most other mid laners who kind of play this style like Nuke and I guess Nemesis is that he uses his roam timers like really, really well. Like he's the only one of the only people that actually like knows what to do when he gets mid prior. Like all the other mid laners are legitimately like playing for their own like almost selfish like needs that they're like, oh, I'm gonna get a reset here at this time, to get a better base. But he knows exactly when he has to roam to actually like enable another lane. We saw this in Spring a lot when he had the Tristana, especially mid lane. Like he kept roaming towards top lane, kept killing people. And it's the same also like when he like even now when he plays Corki, like the package timers and even on Azi, he still exerts pressure, even if he's just laning. So that's way different to a lot of other mid laners that play the same style.
I fully agree. I think what you guys said is perfectly like he knows what to do on mid lane, but at the same time, what Duke said that he's not going to take a game like Caps will do in the past is exactly the best definition of Larsen. He is the best at what he's doing, but he's not the kind of guy who's going to 1v9 a game.
I mean, he can 1v9 the game if the game is stable at 20 minutes and he's like 40 CS ahead and he's going to 1v9. He's an insane player, but doesn't break the game.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's a good way to describe it. Right, obviously, while Schalke was doing their miracle run, like this is how you know G2 is a great team. They just quietly won 6 games in a row themselves as well, and just came into playoffs. So, like all the stories that because remember everyone was wondering, like, oh my god, maybe G2 and Fnatic don't make playoffs. But the difference is Fnatic barely made it, and they made it in fact thanks to some of these crazy results. Whereas G2. All of a sudden, they look really good again. Like this looks like they should. If you were any of the people before thinking, oh, they'll bounce back. Like most people now, I notice are picking them to win LEC. What are the thoughts on the strength of G2?
I mean, it's so hard to say. Like, I mean, even when playing against them, like I could see that they really just know how to play the game, and I think that it's not even like that they have to think about it. Like that's the difference between them and other teams. They sometimes go through these cycles where, okay, we're going to have to work hard. We're going to have to get back to our level. But once they do that, like it just feels like smooth sailing for them. They don't even have to think about it anymore. They just play the game. They win every game. They get on win streaks. So I personally feel like that they are my current favorite to win the split, honestly, simply because of the way that they like. I just don't understand like how they can get 6 wins like in that kind of fashion, as you said, without anyone like sounding alarm bells. Because like this team is just like they're so conveniently good and so silently good that you sometimes just forget about their strength. And I think that all the players, especially when they care again and when they have the time to prepare, like at least this week and next week, they should be the best team in Europe again. They should just be.
What do you think, Duke?
Yeah, I think they are at the moment my clear favorite for this split. I think they are back at the a better form, not their full form, because I think Perks is still struggling quite a lot, unfortunately. But I'm pretty sure that he will come back at some point. Yeah. What I like about G2 is that they are the only team for me that I've never really given up on playing this aggressive style, playmaking style constantly from the early game. And a good version of G2 is a version of G2 where you give them an inch and they take the game. right? On one single mistake, for example, the game against us, they killed our mid laner minute 4 on first roam from Nautilus, and then like the game is over because they are playing a lot through their pressure. They transfer pressure really well. They fog. They make you lose CS, and then you are slowly losing the advantage and tempo. And at some point, just once they have enough advantage, they just crack open the whole game. For me, this is how the game should be played, and I think at the moment they are the only one really trying to play it to the fullest in Europe. I also think that maybe the meta is going more towards them. We see more characters being buffed on last patch, champions on mid lane like Nico, like Lucian that are being buffed. Akali is being buffed. All of those champions are champions that I see Caps really dominating with. For me, G2 is definitely back. And with MAD Lions being a bit on a slump, I think we're going to discuss it afterwards.
Yes.
I really see G2 taking everything.
Right, Araneae, we won't hate you if you secretly think MAD Lions is the one that's going to win. You're allowed to think that if you want. But what do you think of G2?
What you guys said is completely right. Caps is not going to excel on these control mages like C or Oriana. These are kind of champions that people like Lars and Humanoid will excel. Champions like Akali, Lucian, abusable mid laners is where Caps is gonna perform the best, right? Also, we don't see the all G2. For example, if you ever think about Perks being in bot lane, I will always think about his Yasuo. Perks Yasuo in bot lane. This kind of champions, he's getting buff. But these kind of champions that Perks really excel in mechanics, which I don't think the Aphelios, the Senna, high scaling champion is going to work for Perks, and I think he wasn't that good with them. Which also something like Caitlyn might be good, because with Caitlyn you have to play fully macro, and Perks is an expert playing macro, right? But it's not the mechanical thing to play something like Aphelios, which I don't think Aphelios will ever work on D2. But I think Caitlyn and Rain Champion with macro might work for D2. And what Duke said about Caps is completely right. With more buffs into mid laners and buffs into top laners for Wonder and Caps, they might excel again. Are they going to be the best? I'm not sure if they're going to reach this point in playoffs, but I'm sure that in Worlds, D2 is going to be the best once again from Europe. But I'm not sure about players, because maybe Rogue style or even MAD Lions style is still at this point better than D2, but I don't really think for Worlds they're gonna be better than
right.
Rogue.
Yeah. I think first, I don't think Rogue. I think MAD Lions are actually at the moment at the point of where they have to refine themselves. I think that's why they're struggling. I don't think they became bad at some point. I think they are really good, but at the beginning of the split, they were winning a lot through champions that they were the first to master at some, like for example, Oriana, Senna Wukong. Those champions were going really well for them, and I think this cycle is not over, but they have to readapt a bit, and I don't think they found what should define them in the next few weeks. I hope for them that they will, because I think they are the only one who can match G2 in playoffs. For me, this best of 5 should define the meta of the rest of the playoffs, because the same way that, if you remember in spring, we saw MAD Lions trying to play very early game against G2, I think in their second best of 5, and G2 came back to going full late game during this best of 5 and literally stomped MAD Lions. And I'm wondering if G2 are going to keep playing this aggressive early game style in this new best of 5, and what MAD Lions are going to do about it. If one of the team wins while playing through early game, it might change how all other teams are forced to play for the rest of playoffs, and it might be really interesting.
I mean, I can see that. I think what it comes down to me, like as you said earlier too about Perks, right? I think if they find, like, I mean, basically the AD carries that he's going to be playing are going to kind of define the style of G2, like whether or not they're going to go late game, whether or not they're going to go early game. Because if he finds like comfort on Kalista, if he finds more comfort on Senna, if he finds like more comfort on like certain picks, because then now we have like the rotations over, right? We basically came throughout the split. It was like Senna, Kalista, something like that. Then suddenly Aphelios came up again. Then Ashe came up, then like Caitlyn towards the end, So I think now it's like really defined in which AD carries are really good. I think every time that happened for Perks, he has been really good at those champions. Zyra Khan, like that combination, the Kaisa, at some point the Yasuo. Like, so when he has like 2-3 champions they can actually rely on, like this guy will always be fine. And depending on whether or not depending on the AD carries that's going to be, I think that's going to define like G2 style, and it's going to define like how they're going to operate in playoffs. If it's Caitlyn, then that must mean they're probably going to play like a lot of for early game slow pushes into turrets, whatever it is, and then like hopefully have like some kind of backup in late game. If it's going to be the Senna or Kalista, maybe that's going to be a different thing, So I think that's what it relies on, and I do think that like G2, as you put it, like will define whatever is happening in the entire league. Honestly, come playoffs.
Also, I think both of those teams, I guess that because of their coaches, are willing to take risks in the draft. We saw MAD Lions letting Varus open, for example, for the majority of the split. We saw G2 willingly not banning Caitlyn on red this last week. And I think this best of 5 could have a lot of mind games in the draft in terms of who are we letting open. For example, I could even see Kalista and Caitlyn being open in the same game. And I think this matchup is still a bit unresolved. I think Kalista can win if they flash level 1, for example, but then Caitlyn Morgana can get the prio forever, starting level 3-4, and it needs a lot of ganks to be impactful. But I think this matchup could be interesting. But all the draft will be, for me, it will be the most interesting best of 5 to follow. And on a side note, on this best of 5, the top lane should be very crucial, because Wunder is, I think we haven't talked about him, but he's back at his top level. It always feels like Wunder is low-key trolling until the
It's like week 6 or something. Yeah, he looks on his calendar, right? Time to start playing League of Legends then.
Yeah, I imagine he comes going to his room like, dude, you have to stop playing WoW. Like we have to play real games now. And I think at the moment he's insane.
That actually annoys the shit out of me that team can do that, because like other teams in the league think they can do the same. They can just shit, and then suddenly like turn up in the end, but they don't have anything to turn up. They turn up the heat, like it's like it's not working. It's not working, So I don't know, like that annoys the shit out of me. But yeah, you're right. Like Wunder is like back there, and he's like,
he's destroying lane, and he should be able to play a lot of carry. And it's interesting because Araneae, as much as he has been given some strong side a bit more this split, he's still very much a very weak sider in terms of how, MAD Lions jungle proximity, for example, if you looked at the stats that LEC just released on Twitter, they are the first on bot lane. The jungler always goes towards bot most of the time, and Araneae is still playing a lot alone. So how will he match against Wunder if Wunder gets a counter pick, for example? I think Araneae is super underrated. He's a great player, extremely smart player, but he's facing on-form Wunder. So we'll see.
Wasn't that the case? What happened on the split where G2, I believe, they fourth pick from red side blind pick Camille into MAD Lions, and then they actually counter pick with Jax.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that
you had Kalista bot, which you can play fully for bot on that game for MAD Lions, but they decided to pick Jax to match the Camille. When you could have picked a tank, you can pick even I don't know if Ornn was open. I don't know if Poppy worked there. Like you can pick a lot of things, but they decided to go for a Jax to match versus Wunder, which I think it showed that the Araneae could face Wunder at that time. I'm not sure how is he gonna face right now though.
Sure. I actually think in that sense, though, when you were describing that fact, like, Wunder does seem like the player where he just, like, he realizes when he has to turn it on and actually get good now because playoffs is coming. Dude, that just reminds me of those old teams with Soaz and Expecka. Those guys were the masters of that. They understood when the real, like, season begins, as it were, and it isn't week 1 if you've been to the finals every time,
Peke literally was partying for the Wool split. Even on playoffs, he was partying, and then he went to Korea, and he started playing, I believe, like 20 solo queues per day. And then I remember going with Reckless back to the hotel, and Reckless was saying, like, I'm so exhausted. Like, I played 5 games, and I'm so exhausted. And you see Peke, you played 20 solo queues, and he's like, I want to play more. Because literally, for the rest of the year, Peke didn't play a single solo queue. He had, like, 100 solo queues in a split, and Reckless had, like, 1,000.
Of course, yes. No, that's good. Yeah, I like you. A good job you added that end part there. Obviously, Reckless played a lot of League of Legends. He just didn't do it all like 1 week before Worlds or whatever, like expected it apparently. So fair play. Again, though, as it is in Sears, if you can actually get away with that, it is pretty rock and roll. It does seem pretty cool. The problem is, if you're a young player out there, you can't get away with that. Don't attempt that. No. Your career will die if you do that.
Yeah. I mean,
he can also do this. He can also do this because Caps is there. Like if Caps
that helps.
I agree.
Can carry the summer split,
yes,
and he's not performing that well, he might put his carry plans before the split is over.
Yeah.
Because Sorry.
That's
Well, actually, what the thing you mentioned there, though, Araneae, is also why the story makes sense, because that's also why they could do that. It's because they also had Reckless, and he was practicing all the time. So it was like, right, Reckless, you better carry us in this part of the regular split, mate. We'll see you in the playoffs.
yeah. There's also nothing wrong with that. I think it's actually like, I mean, at least for veterans, I think it's kind of like a good approach. I think burning oneself out over the course of the split, just for the sake of like maybe picking up 1 or 2 more wins, I guess. Like if you can sail by and then still get second, I guess.
Yes.
I guess just go for that. Just go for that. It's better.
The only thing is, though, the other piece of advice I would give to the young pros in League of Legends is that's why when you play these guys on week 4 of the split, and for you it's like the World Championship because you've never been and done anything, and you win that game and you get a bit cocky and you talk some shit, and you think, yeah, I'm here now, I'm better than these guys. Like if you meet them in the playoffs, like again, probably going to go bad for you. Like they're probably going to remember that moment. Now they're actually playing the game as well. For you, as you know, it's like the old M. Bison quote from Street Fighter. For you, it was like the best day of your life. On that case, the worst. For them, it was just Tuesday or something. Like it wasn't a big deal for them. You have to understand, right? Okay. Speaking of which, the other side of this matchup, MAD Lions, right? Araneae, come on. No one at the moment on any show basically believes in MAD Lions. I don't know why, because 2 weeks ago they were the best team in Europe. Everyone was loving them. They were supposed to be the future, all that. Like everyone now seems to have just lost faith in them completely. But still, an interesting detail I noticed in all the MVP discussions. What's weird is their team tends to get overlooked because since they were the best for most of the split, people think most of the players are pretty good in this team. So if you've got a quality team like that, they should still have a solid chance in this series, right? What do you think, Araneae?
I mean, usually a MAD Lions versus G2, it looks really good for MAD Lions because, as Duke said, MAD is one of these few teams who can match up G2 on their peak when they play this crazy style, which MAD Lions can risk on drafts and play this crazy style as well, and they are meant to do this. Like they can do this, so it's good for them. What level of MAD Lions I'm gonna see? It's hard to say. I'm pretty sure like. For me, if MAD Lions has something, is the staff behind. I think Mac and especially Peter are 2 of the best coaches I've worked with, or I had the pleasure to talk with. So I'm sure they're gonna do a lot of good job to make them look good again. Are they gonna be able to beat G2? I really believe so, but once again, I'm wearing a MAD Lions t-shirt, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, you have your obvious bias. Yeah, we understand. It's all right.
But it's once again, it depends a lot of G2 level. Like this is exactly what Fnatic said when we talk about Fnatic. Fnatic and G2 are obviously the kings of Europe. So if they come to playoffs with a good level, there is a lot of bad things coming to the other teams.
I don't think we should write off Malen. It's just that they are a bit less dominant than what they have been, and G2. They were also being praised, and the same way for Rogue, because Fnatic and G2 were not doing well. But it feels like G2 is coming back, while they are also on a slight slump. So it's normal to not be as high. But I think if they find the style again, they are the only one to be able to match this early game style. I think individually they are insanely talented. I think the MAD Lions roster has only top player at every role. And I think Mac is, I know Mac also very well. I think he's a great coach, and I'm pretty sure he will be able to prepare really well and really read this matchup really well, even if it's never easy against G2. So I'm still really confident in their ability to pull it off. But from what we have seen recently, and we can't predict, right? It's a bit hard at the moment to see them fighting this G2. I think, again, I would give a 55-35 for G2.
Fair enough.
I would not be surprised. Oh, you can go. No,
something I want to say is really fast is still MAD Lions is a rookie team, and every single time, everyone, literally SPN and every single team is praising MAD Lions, they go down. When no one praised MAD Lions, like for example last split on Spring Split, the first best of 5 they played versus G2, they demolished G2. They beat G2, and no one was expecting that. No one bet a single euro for MAD Lions, and they beat them. Then MAD Lions versus G2 again. All MAD Lions can beat, they lose. So right now I prefer to say G2 is going to beat MAD Lions because at that point it's when probably MAD Lions going to win G2. But it's like this. Like even this split, no one was paying any money, betting any money for MAD Lions, and they were first place. And then everyone was praising MAD Lions, and they start to look shady. Right now, I'm just gonna say the opposite. I'm gonna say MAD Lions is pretty bad.
But
and
do the players like pay attention to social media or whatever?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. I mean, I'm not there. I'm not a Berlin.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, I mean,
But
it was
knowing the personality of people like Humanoid, Karsti, who this split, we are convincing them to tweet more, to use more social media and stuff like this. The good part about the social media, the numbers increasing, that's good for you. But there is also a bad part. There is the fans, the responsibility to read what people is saying to you. That's something not the best, especially for a rookie. For a guy like amazing, like Soas, like Peke, who literally just read these bad comments every single day of your career.
You should post every day.
It's not always the best for amazing if you ever see compliments quite a lot. So,
but we learn how to live with that. Rookie players is harder for them, which I don't know how they're gonna affect them. But I really believe MAD Lions has a good shot. But let's once again bet for G2, so it's gonna be better for MAD Lions.
Okay.
That is one thing, by the way, that definitely has changed since like the days when you like LCS first began and a couple of you guys were playing in it. Because way back in the day, listen, people definitely would like sometimes flame you if you lost the game, or maybe they'd like talk about something specific, you know, like a moment you did wrong in the game. But nowadays, the problem is there's so many fans and so many of them are really young. It's just so brutal if you're a player. Like, I can't imagine some young player just going and reading his replies because it's just going to be like 500 people sending like a clown face to you or something because you lost the game. It's like, if you've never dealt with that before, that might be hard. That might get to you.
It's like, I know I don't know if it's a Fortnite meta or whatever it is, but it's like, it's really coming over. It's like, legitimately, like people are celebrating, oh, you're getting ratioed, idiot, you're getting ratioed, you know, like this kind of stuff, you know, like that's just one thing. Then suddenly you have people in your DMs is like, just literally, as you said, clown face, they just clown face you, and you're like, thanks, I guess I'm good, you know, I don't need to read that anymore. But it's actually, the trash talk meta has changed. I would submit to that, yeah.
And G2 is still the kings of the trash talk, I've got to say. Although, then again, though, they also like are sort of cheating because since they're so good at trash talk, have you noticed, like, their trick is they always trash talk themselves before the other person can, and then the other person's like, well, what the fuck do I say now? They've already sort of made fun of themselves on that. We've got nothing. So they just win both ways. That's pretty good.
They're doing the Eminem defense.
Exactly. Yeah. They're really good at it, though. That's the crazy thing. Like I said, there's nothing left to say. Like, they've just done a good job. It's like, oh, well, they sort of take the sting out of the trash talk a bit. Although I still think it is crazy, especially if you think, like, back in the day, League of Legends especially, people used to be really uptight about, like, jokes from orgs and stuff. The fact that the org, like, they don't just, like, joke. They do trash talk their own players, but I love it because they're just so on point. Like you can tell the Ancos actually gets mildly tilted by the way they trash talk him, even it's his own team. Fair enough.
I think they do a good job, even if when it was going a bit worse. If you happen to look a bit into G2's fans' reaction, they were not buying that kind of that
wasn't like doomsday,
yeah, they were like, okay, it's time to stop making fun of it and have some results. So I would want to see. I mean, I wouldn't want for them because I think that would be a shame for G2 to fall, since we kind of need them as Europe to lift us, lift our level, but. This kind of communication with the team not going well on a long-term basis, I would say, and don't know if it would work that much, but I would want to see.
Right, another factor, obviously, for Rogue and MAD Lions, which means that, like, until they actually basically win the split or go really deep in the playoffs, a lot of people are still going to be a bit reserved. Is that some of these players, like, none of them have ever been in a final, like I said, except for Vander, basically. So, do you think that actually, like, here's the question, basically, since we're playing online, and I believe they said, though, that, didn't they say playoffs will be on stage, though, still? Do you know anything about that, Amazing?
I think that they're trying to. I think
it's on discussion.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think this will play a factor? Because obviously that's, again, where, you know, at least the G2 and Fnatic players, they've been in the finals, haven't they? They've got the experience. Will that be a factor?
Yes. Huge factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, if they go to playoffs, actually, I mean, if they go to states, actually the Rogue versus Fnatic, holy, I would like to change my prediction.
It's fate definite.
I change prediction for Fnatic 100% sure.
Yes, same.
Because to be honest, teams like Rogue and MAD Lions, they've been signing, especially when they play from home. But it's way different the pressure you get when you play on a stage. And there are a lot of players. Always there has been players which they perform better on pressure of a stage pressure. That is way different than being at home. And even someone like Cellmate was making fun about how the seasons are going to look from end of spring and all the summer, because he was jokingly on Twitter saying that this is going to be like scrims. It's gonna be literally scrims, but on Twitch TV.
Yes.
That's what he was saying. So going to States, holy, Fnatic and D2 are gonna look way different.
You know, we had a 8-4 record before we went into the COVID lockdown, and since then we've had like a 30-40% win record like since then. So I mean, for us, like, but maybe there are probably other reasons too, but like, it makes a huge difference on the mentality of the players. It's actually insane how people also react to the stimulus of just taking the shuttle and just drive into the studio. It's like they suddenly get hyped, you know. They suddenly have this, I want to play, and they get the adrenaline through them and whatever it is. And you have to artificially force that for veterans, especially, and that's kind of
to find like a reason to get into the game. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just not the same. And
yeah, it was actually something on when I did the crackdown. We had Kobe on the other day. He was saying the same thing. Basically, is like the problem as well is it can be like the reverse for the people who are the veterans who've been to LEC loads of times. You're used to sort of going through that ritual to make it feel different, and then you play the game. Whereas he said when you lose and you're just sat at the same PC and you look over at the door where like the guy with the pizza comes or whatever, like that just feels wrong. It feels like what the fuck? This isn't the playing environment you used to, right?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not something. I really hope it's going to be over soon. Like that's all I'm hoping for, because it's kind of driving the fun away from esports. I think the fan interaction, or at least like being on stage, like being in front of like the lights, whatever it is. Like even for me now as a coach, like when I see this, I get hyped. I want to be there. But when I'm in the same office like 24/7 and play from there, like maybe there's going to be alternative methods, like maybe having a boot camp isolated, whatever it is, you know, like something like that. But in the end, nothing replaces like fan interaction, I would say. Like I think that's the biggest one.
That's why I also hope we get to actually have it on stage, because the other bad thing is if Mad Lions or Rogue wins, people will always just be like, oh, that has the asterisk next to it, like that was because it was the online ones, you know, so they won't get the proper credit. Like if they do it when it's in the actual stage setup, at least they'll get some like credit that it was a real win, that they were the best team.
Wasn't there a message about
if it's an empty stage though, like imagine you are on stage but there is no one in the crowd.
Sure.
So I don't know.
Still not as big a deal, sure.
Yeah,
it still makes a difference, though.
It's still better than going from home, for sure.
Yeah, I guess.
And there was a message about
go on.
some Chinese like events already being held like or relatively soon this year, that they're actually gonna open up like with spectators. I remember, so it's actually not gonna be like. I mean, that far-fetched. I think within Europe, I think it's probably still gonna be tough. But like when it comes to Worlds, potentially even, maybe we'll see something there. You know, like we'll never know.
But I have one last question, one last topic we can do, which is, listen, even though this is actually the award that I know most people who are coaches hate, the Coach of the Split award, because it's basically just like, who do people on Reddit imagine is a good coach, and for totally whatever made up reasons they'd like. And so we all just get to pick like a complete, you know, like we can just make up whatever reason. So even so, one thing I always think is interesting is, you try and figure it. I always say for this award, the reason it's weird is you're almost trying to like guess at what someone does. So it's almost like, it's like one of those like Sherlock TV shows where you just have to like guess a million things. Like, right, I think he did this because this, and then this other thing happened, and that maybe is why something else was the case. And then you come up with this really elaborate theory. But you can sort of do it. Like with certain teams, you know, if they have like not very good players and they overperform, you can think, well, maybe the coach has something to do with that. Or if they've got rookies and they perform, because maybe he did a good job there. So what I basically just want to know is if you guys had a vote, or you had a person you think stands out, who would be the coach of the split for each of you? Who would you put your money towards? Because this one's a pretty interesting one, I think.
Yeah. So first for me, how I see coach of the split is because it's really hard to know who is good or not. Everyone hears from players, but even players are biased depending on their own relationship with the coach. Is the coach asking too much from me, so I don't like him even if I'm in the wrong? So it's really questionable. But I think for me, the coach of the split should be which team overperform compared to what people were thinking of their roster, right? Okay. That's why personally I would, in the past, even if I have no doubt that they are great coaches, I would never voted for Drabs or Young Buck. I'm not saying that they are bad coaches at all. I think they are insane coaches, and I heard good things about them, but they don't have the hardest job, at least from my perspective, and to achieve results. And so looking at this split, for me, in terms of who overperformed and who for me had the hardest job, for me, actually, this split might be for me the easiest vote ever, right? I just vote Dylan Falco. He had, as a coach, imagine trying to be in a situation where your team is 1-8 in LEC. That's the end of the year, so you don't even have a new split going forward. The atmosphere must be terrible. It's super hard to run scrims because of motivation issues. You have no confidence on real game. Players are hardly believing in the player front anymore, so they don't have anything to fight for. They had a lot of changes. Making changes is really hard for teams and for coaches. If you don't have to make changes and your team is always the best, that's in a sense really easy. But when you have to try to see what's best for you on a short-term basis, it's really hard. And from 1-8 to I think 8-10 or something, and going to playoffs for me it's a miracle run. And I think if anything, of course, there is God Gideon, Zabadaga played well, Odo played well, the bot lane is doing fine, but in a sense for me this is how I would vote for a coach of the split, and I voted for Dylan, even if I think Dylan, Mac, because even if I always had in mind that even in spring split that MAD Lions players were super good and that they should be a really good team. I think he also challenged a bit the meta in the beginning of the split, which I think is really a really good thing, with not letting Varus open, etc. And they did really well during the split. And I had as third or second, I don't remember, Jesus, for the same reason than Dylan, where I think I was not expecting SK to go this far, and I think they did really well. So I put him in the top 3.
Any thoughts, gentlemen?
I have something really similar to Duke here. If I will consider someone really good this split, I will put on. I actually forgot the name.
Which team?
Excel. Oh my God.
Youngbuck.
Yeah, Youngbuck. Youngbuck is the same. Youngbuck for me is exactly the same what Duke just said right now. If you consider all his players, if you consider where do they rank itself on the season, on the LEC, I actually think Youngbuck did an amazing work for almost being on players, and it's exactly the same reasoning what Duke just said. I didn't expect Excel to be over 9th place, and they actually almost got to players. So for me, it's impressive. Also, exactly what Duke said. I think what Mac did this split with MAD Lions is really impressive in terms of redefining the meta. This bringing some new picks to the table, which in the past it was only being made by Fnatic and G2. They were the only 2 teams that had the balls to do these kind of things, to use like pull Yasuo bot, pull even Soraka, Graves, stuff like this, like different picks to the table. It was only being made by Fnatic and G2, and MAD Lions kind of did this split with Wukong and some of the picks, which that's why I will put him right there as well. But I think Youngbuck for me will be the coach of the split.
Definitely didn't have much to work with in terms of his roster. Like, I even the fact that like his best players were the bot lane, and it's hard to just have a bot lane.
And we have to remind, it's a bot lane that literally got kicked from 2 different teams, or they got replaced from 2 different teams. It's not like you're picking the best bot lane you can choose.
True, it was a new bot lane. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think, Amazing?
No, I'm taking Youngbuck first. I didn't expect that Excel roster to do anything. Honestly, if I think about the players, like I would put them at like a 6-12, 5-13, that kind of stuff. You know, like not more wins than that, and they somehow made it to I guess it was 8 wins in the end.
They only went out of the playoffs because of a tiebreaker. Like they were actually as close as you can possibly be. So yeah, quite impressive actually.
Yeah, and then second, I think Mac, simply because of like MAD Lions, that they're still performing at least like to a certain extent. They were first place for majority of the split, so for the first 7 weeks, I guess he deserves that notion. And then third, I'm not even sure if so. The thing about Dylan Falco is not like that. I mean I know what he's doing. I think that he's good. I just think that like they also got really like I don't know, the momentum swing that they had over the second part of the split. Like it feels like a bit more lucky than it is like skill, and I think it's maybe because of the player types that they have, that I know like the way that they act and that they never give up. Yeah, but I guess if I had to take a third one, it would be Dylan. But it's not like Shaq had a lot of like other scenarios that coming through that eventually like get them to that spot, you know. So
I actually feel so bad for Freddy.
Yeah, no one's even mentioned him at all. He only took a bunch of players that had never done anything except Vandra and then just made him first in LEC. So no big deal, right, guys? Just
I mean, maybe they honed a
Usual
certain
day at the
style
office.
properly, but I don't know if that's Freddy. You know, that's the question, right? Is it Freddy or is it like someone else? Because like for me, when I see like the team operate, it's like Vander footprints all over the place. You know, like slow and steady wins the race, and then like have a strong level one, pick a lot of Braum, like hope for the best, these kind of things. So it's kind of like the Vander school of thought, and yeah, I mean, probably Freddy had a lot to do with it, but I just can't evaluate. I just don't know. Like about the other coaches, I have some kind of an idea because I mean I've talked to them or I have other views from other people, you know, that I know of, so I can kind of see it more. But yeah, like with Freddy, it's just really hard to say because I don't think anyone has personally interacted with this guy ever in their lives.
No one ever. Exactly.
I did. I was in a team with him, season 1 with Citizen Wayne, Freddy, and some other players.
Yeah, okay, so how much you converse about the coaching philosophies of season 10?
No. Literally, the guy is a guy of not many words.
Yes.
Exactly. It's just that I actually voted Freddy in the past on other splits, even when I'm back, maybe when he was in Rocket too, I don't remember. I think he always did well with his roster, but nothing surprising. And in the end, if I compare, I don't think he did bad this split for sure, but he didn't surprise me as much as Dylan Falco did, for example. And I agree on the point on Youngbuck. It's just that on Youngbuck, I think that's always the same about who got lucky or who had the right games that they shouldn't be winning. And I think Excel, it's often tilted on Excel's side, and good for them. I think Youngbuck did really good drafts overall, and I think that carried Excel a lot. So in that sense, I think he could deserve it. It's just that I've never seen them play well. As a team, as a team, that's
fault.
No, I'm not saying, but you can't say. But I've never been impressed by. I've been impressed by Patrick. I've been impressed by their drafts. But in terms of just playing the game, I think they are really lagging behind, and maybe you could say that he carried the team with the draft because I think he has some insane drafts, and some of them that he lost, that way he still lost the game. But it's just that I'm not impressed by Excel, even if they had a good, indeed a run that I was not expecting. For me, sure. I never felt like when they were winning that it was convincing. It was.
You were not scared of them when I play. Like honestly, when you played against them, you weren't scared.
And I got 0-2. And we still got 0-2 by Excel. But we were always thinking that they were never a good team, and maybe we were just wrong. But I don't think we were. But still, of course. I mean, anyway, we all know the value of Youngbuck as a coach. I think he's proven at this point. But for me, it will still go to Dylan for the split.
Should coach of the split be not just a regular season award, but should it also be a playoff award? Like I think maybe that will make it more clear because best of 5 strategies actually bring out more in coaches than best of 1s, honestly.
And you see a lot more from draft, etc. Yeah, you would get a lot more info for sure.
So first for me, it should be coaching staff of the split because
I agree.
Most staff are now many people and with a lot of good unsung heroes in those staff. And it should be coaching staff of the split. But then if you move coach to the end of the playoff, you could also have you could argue it would be the same for the players. So maybe it should be defined a bit more. So what is coach of the split? Is coach of the split the coach with the most successful team? So might as well call it team of the split. Is it the coach that overperforms the most, the coach that has the best draft, but to which extent is actually only the coach's responsibility to draft? And we all know, as we are all coaches, that players have a huge impact in the draft. So their draft, I mean, I often arrived on stage knowing that this draft would be lost no matter what, unless the enemy is trolling, right? And if you know what the enemy is playing and what you are not playing, I'm not saying this.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like either you flip it, then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna first time that champion, or you just lose based on draft. Like,
exactly. So I think it's hard. Everyone has his own opinion on coach of the split and what it should be, but.
I think the extension will make sense. I think coaching staff of the split will make more sense than coach of the split. I think that kind of because it then gives basically the overall structure behind the team. Maybe even basically you kind of say that it's team of the split, and you kind of say organization of the split to a certain extent by saying coaching staff of the split. And I think that extension itself would make a lot more sense because I mean I have no idea how much, for example, Fabian Broich and the Excel sports psychologist did for them. I have no idea. like in terms of like how much he had to do with the winning compared to Youngbuck, for example, So saying it's coaching staff with the spirit would actually be a better way of putting it.
This video was kindly supported by Pronogo, Whattathings, Spencer Green, Soliko, Dean Tanglis, Jack Hanna, Hades, Jensen Goh, the Puyallup Tribe, JDubs, Tobias Bernasconi, Alexander Rao, and a special thanks, as always, goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you'd like to put a question to me in my monthly video AMA. Do you want teasers for my upcoming content? Or maybe to even take part in an online esports discussion with moi? Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today in the Patreon link in the description box below.